And we are live with a rather big story going on. It looks like Disney's finally waking up and smelling the coffee there over at ABC. Although you got to take this with the caveat that there's a huge FCC investigation going on, and Brendan Carr was actually just out recently. We got to play that sound for you today. Actually on Fox, saying that, things are not looking very good for, shall we say, Disney and thus ABC. Specifically ABC News. And then they got one reporter that just decided to go rogue over the weekend and tell us how he really feels. And boy, did he tell us how he really feels. Welcome to the program, everyone. This is Trish Regan Show. I'm Trish. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, comment. We are live, so I see it all. But I'll tell you, Terry Moran, this is the journalist that Donald Trump sat down with recently. The one that he was giving his big break to. He pulled out all the stops over the weekend. But just to jog your memory, because you probably don't know who he is. Donald Trump didn't know who he was until this.
Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry.
Well, you moved on, all right. You moved on to Stephen Miller, and it got in a little bit of trouble, shall we say. I'm just going to show you part of his tweet because the whole thing is so bad I can't even actually, I'm not going to say it here because it's so vile and it's so gross and it's so bad. But he just went off about Stephen Miller, saying that, he is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. And he goes on and on and on. And actually, it's a very hateful thing. It's a very, very hateful thing. And it's so hateful that even though it was like midnight on Saturday, you know what? It got the attention of a lot of important people, including the Vice President of the United States, who tweeted out this. An ABC journalist, Terry Moran, posted this absolutely vile smear of Stephen Miller. It's dripping with hatred. Yeah, it certainly was. Okay, it certainly was. Remember that every time you watch ABC's coverage of the Trump administration, remember that. As it happens, I know Stephen quite well. He defended him, and he said he's motivated by love of country. He's motivated by fear that people like Terry Moran make the rules that normal Americans have to follow, but well-connected people don't. It's why he fought so hard to get President Trump elected and why he works so hard to implement the agenda. ABC should apologize to Stephen. What Terry posted is disgusting. It is disgusting, okay? I'll let you go and find it, but it was totally, absolutely disgusting. So disgusting that ABC not only suspended the guy, but came out with a statement. I'm still waiting on the apology, as is JD Vance. Let's take a look at what they said. ABC suspends reporter Terry Moran. ABC News stands for objectivity and impartiality in its news coverage and does not condone subjective personal attacks on others. Right. The post does not reflect the views of ABC News and violated our standards. As a result, Terry Moran has been suspended pending further evaluation. This is a spokesperson speaking to the New York Post, so one has to wonder, is he going to get his job back? Or is this it? Is this it? I'll tell you, the White House is all over it. I think that it exemplifies exactly how the media, which pretends it's, journalists, media with a capital J, really feels about the situation. Caroline Levitt speaking just on Sunday, just yesterday, to my former colleague Maria Bartiromo about this.
Stephen Miller put a post out about the details of the big, beautiful bill, and he was attacked by one of the reporters apparently on ABC. I saw your tweet about it, and you say last night in a since deleted post, so-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller. What happened, Caroline?
Well, ABC is going to have to answer for what their, again, so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night, calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater. And this is, again, coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will we'll see what they do. But I think this speaks to the distrust that the American public have in the legacy media. And it's why in the White House press shop and in President Trump's White House, we have made so many significant and much needed changes to press access and transparency at the White House. We've invited in new media. We have shaken up the White House press pool. And we also just won a major victory over the Associated Press, who thought that they had a constitutional right to walk into the Oval Office or to fly on Air Force One, and a judge said no. In fact, those are privileged spaces that belong to the President of the United States, and this is a great ruling for democracy. We fought them in court, and we won, and so we will continue to keep or hold journalists accountable. All we're asking for is truth and transparency. That's it.
Of course. And you said ABC is going to take action. What do you expect that action to be?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, hopefully this journalist will either be suspended or terminated. You cannot go on these unhinged rants against administration officials and the President of the United States. And then clearly he knew he was wrong, because he deleted the post as soon as he allegedly woke up this morning.
Caroline,
right. So what is ABC News going to do about it? Well, they're suspending him. They're investigating him. I remember when Whoopi Goldberg got suspended, and somehow she's still there. But you know what? It's a little bit different this time, guys. It's a little bit different because the FCC is onto them. I mean, Donald Trump told Terry Moran preemptively that he was fake news right to his face, right? Remember this one just a couple of weeks ago? Terry living up to the reputation.
Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across the stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you.
I mean, you call them like you see them, right? Donald Trump, just a couple of weeks ago, telling Terry Moran he was fake news, ABC News was fake news, telling him how biased he was and getting into this whole conflict, right? Remember, Terry, this is your big shot. You know, I picked you because nobody knew of you. Nobody had ever heard of you. Well, now a few people have heard of him. He may actually be out of a job very soon at ABC. And it's a very kind of important thing, I think, for us to just take a step back and think about what this represents, because it's like, tell us how you really feel. I mean, at least here on this program, like, there's full transparency. You know exactly how I feel. I'm going to tell you about it all day long. And I'm not afraid to. I have the freedom to do that. We are a podcast that is transparent and that hopefully is giving you that authenticity that I think you all crave, right, in the news right now, because you're not getting that from the journalist over at ABC News, who is a journalist, right? Like, I've been there. I've been one of the network news journalists where you get a minute 30 every night and 10 seconds on camera, and don't you dare go beyond that minute 40, right? Because it's a very tightly wound show. Everything's scripted, everything's parsed out, and you're delivering this so-called unbiased report. But keep in mind, there's a bias coming from the executive producer, coming from the anchor, and then also coming from the correspondents. But they're pretending like they don't have that. And those days are over. Like, they really are. I mean, look, The View is The View. It's a terrible show. I'm amazed it's still on television. I'm amazed anybody watches it. But at least you know where they're coming from. I think the problem that they run into is they keep saying, whoa, we're ABC News, we got ABC News behind us, right? That Joe Rogan, why would anybody watch him? He believes in dragons. Just had some fun with that. Well, the point, though, is that they do try to present things as though they're fact, even on that show. And I think that's where they really are doing such a disservice to people. And this is why you have the FCC breathing down their back. This is an ABC News product where Whoopi Goldberg was spitting every time she said Donald Trump's name, right?
Listen, take him seriously and take him literally.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that we have to. I think it would be remiss of us to not say Joe Biden knows how to do this. Yes, he knows how to do this. He's quite good at this. And you know, you can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean
he rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing? Because Trump is out there calling...
Did you say his name?
I said his name.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a trick and it made me do it. But I'm just saying that that Biden knows what not to do. You can't refute that man because he just spins and spins and spins.
Yeah.
All you can really do is talk about what you do and how you do what you do.
But he should do it like this. He should, while Trump was gargling less Lysol, whatever he was drinking, I was fixing infrastructure. While Trump was doing A, B, and C, I was doing this.
He was convicted of 34 counts.
Yes, 34 counts. I was repaying student loans. I mean, that way he gets to diss Trump and say what he did.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so taking political advice from The View. Well, no wonder Biden lost, right? And Kamala. Hey, Wade, thank you so much. So appreciate the generosity. And I'm glad you like the Spider-Woman outfit. And I think we got another super sticker. Peace of my mind. Good to see you in here again today, along, of course, with our good friend Don. Seeing so many regulars here and so appreciate it. David Lorenzo, again, all of you guys here live. And it's it's really something. Peace of my mind picking up on allegedly woke up this morning. I'm not sure if he woke up. I'm not sure if he ever wakes up. And again, it's endemic, if you would, of this network overall. I mean, they clearly have a problem.
It's something that I'm still struggling with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on is how did a convicted felon resonate more with Americans than a hyper-qualified woman of color? Do you think that racism and misogyny played any part in this election?
Well, listen, I think that Vice President Harris was eminently qualified. And I supported her with everything that I had, and I think so many Americans did. It was a close election at the end of the day. Didn't break in her direction. I think we all are going to unpack as part of our after-action analysis. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Where did we fall short? I do think that the emerging lesson, separate and apart from reasons may be connected to race and misogyny, is that the economy was the dominant theme for a lot of folks.
Yeah,
particularly when you consider.
I'm really glad that Hakeem Jeffries at least admitted that. But the ladies on The View, they can't go there, right? They're stuck in that, it was racism, it was misogyny, it was this, that, and the other. And I think because they keep going back to that, the FCC is looking at it saying, do we really need to have this on the public airwaves? I mean, maybe you guys can go do a podcast or something, but do we really need this on the public airwaves? I mean, MSNBC was not even public airwaves. Look, there's a difference between being network television, right, where you are governed under some kind of infrastructure, if you would, or semblance of infrastructure by the FCC, versus if you're cable, where you have a little bit more leadway. But you know what? NBC didn't want anything to do with MSNBC anymore because they knew that their NBC license was in jeopardy because of that cable network, MSNBC, because you had some, dare I say, Looney Tunes. I mean, my gosh, this woman who lost her job because of it, right? Which is exactly where Terry's probably going to find himself very, very soon. Joy Reid trying to take the entire network down and NBC with her until they said, sayonara, see ya. It's a big part of the spinoff, by the way, but also they got rid of this one.
So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, I think you're kind of missing the point.
No, I think you were missing the point. I think that you actually, Joy, created a very big problem for NBC as a network, telling people not to get together with their family over Christmas because of politics or over Thanksgiving. I mean, for goodness sakes. You can understand why the FCC would say, maybe we need to take a harder look. And in fact, they are investigating NBC right now for some of their DEI practices, et cetera. So part of the intention of, spinning off MSNBC is to try and get it away from NBC and protect the parent company owned by Comcast. I will say this, some people got the message. Some people, like Mika and Joe, we're talking ultimate survivors in these two. I mean, they get it, right? They saw the handwriting on the wall. They came into work the next day. I think Joe actually wore a suit for once, saying, well, this was a landslide. You better believe it was.
Well, I mean, so much to go through, so many questions. I came onto the set and Willie said, hey, by the way, because we were talking about the historic nature of this sweep.
Yeah.
And Willie said, do you know, he only lost Illinois by 4 points.
4 points in
New Jersey by 5. I mean, you talk about we had talked about a red wave 2 years ago that never materialized. This is I've got to say, this is the biggest red wave I've seen since Ronald Reagan's 49 state victory in 1984. It seems every Republican across the country improved.
Yeah. Imagine that. It really is the economy stupid. Oh, and a few other little things, shall we say, including the First Amendment, including the DEI stuff. I'll tell you who did not like that. Isn't she a former View person, a former ABC person until they couldn't take it anymore? Rosie O'Donnell did not like that, not one bit. Oh, she's sworn off Mika and Joe because they see the handwriting on the wall. And as I said, they're survivors. They are survivors. I mean, I would say never take anything they say with a grain of salt because just 24 hours before, they were warning us about how you can't elect Donald Trump, right? Here's Rosie.
Period. End of statement. Unreal. Unreal. For months, you were telling us he's the worst thing that could happen to this country and democracy. And then you go kiss his ring? Despicable. Despicable you. Both of you.
Isn't that a movie? Is that a Disney movie? Despicable Me? Anyway, Rosie really didn't like it, but it is what it is, right? They are who they are. Rosie, maybe they don't have your kind of cash to go buy the pad in Ireland and, defect from the country. Listen, they are who they are, but it's partly why I think ratings are failing so miserably at a place like MSNBC, because it's like you don't know what you're getting. The people that are completely crazed, right? They have been written off. They have been fired. They are gone. Meanwhile, the people that are still there are survivors for a reason because they're talking their book, which is, I guess, whatever the corporate book is at the time. And poor Terry Moran, Terry, who nobody had ever heard of, he doesn't get it. Like he's talking gobbledygook. I mean, I'm not even reading what he's saying. It's so bad about Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller doesn't deserve that. I'm telling you, Stephen Miller, I've known him for years, is a nice guy. Lovely wife, Katie, like just a sunny, terrific person. And he doesn't deserve that. I mean, who the heck deserves that from the likes of this ABC journalist? So now insiders are predicting that ABC News is going to have to be sold. You see, because ABC News is of no value, really, to Disney. It is just a headache. You got the Terry Morans of the world along with, the George Stephanopoulos. You've costing you $16 million. You've got Jonathan Karl, who was in trouble recently. You got David Muir, who showed his hand, Martha Raddatz, etc. And so consequently, you're looking at it, if you're Disney, and dare I forget, The View, obviously, right? Alphonse, good to see you. It's been a while. Lots of generosity, much appreciated. I remember exactly when Terry Moran said that, yes, in 2017, he said he compared it to a pretty darn hateful thing. Alphonse, it's not acceptable. It is not cool. You can't do it. Ed Miller, thank you for your generosity. I calling out the you-know-what on the left. Thank you very much. Listen, this is catching up with them, guys, because Disney's looking at ABC and they're like, who needs this? We don't need the show The View. We don't need the Terry Morans of the world. We don't need David Muir. We don't need George Stephanopoulos. And we don't need Martha. And we don't need Jonathan Karl and the rest of them causing all these headaches for us because you know what? They're in a bit of trouble. I'm going to get to what Brendan Carr just said. But first, listen to this. This is another sort of doozy from that show that's on that I can't believe anybody watches. I don't think it's going to be long-lived on network news.
What's interesting for me is that people's faith in the country is waning. That's the thing that's pissing me off. Because, in fact, there's a reason Joe Biden ran the way he did. There's a reason he's running for democracy now, because that's really what's at stake. You worried that you can't pay your bill? Wait till the other guy becomes president, and you won't have to worry about it because you'll be in some camp somewhere. Because that's his promise. His promise to...
Okay, guys, did you hear that? This is ahead of the election, right? So again, Disney's got a problem here. She's trying to suggest that if he wins, you're going to be put off in camp somewhere. I mean, this is network news, okay? It's produced by ABC News. And you know what? The FCC does have governorship over this.
Is he's going to force people to do his bidding. That's what he said. I'm going to be good on day one, and I'm going to turn into this other person. So here's the deal. This is all up to you. This is all up to you. We can sit up here till we're green in the face. But this really comes down to the people. What is the country you want? Do you want the country that you kind of thought you had, where we all get to say what we think and we don't have to be afraid of being American? And believing that, yeah, there will be people who come in and some will get in quick and some will take a different route, but they're coming here for a reason because they're living in a place that's not good for their families. If you're okay with that, you understand that, then fight for us to find a better way to make immigration work. Fight for that. Don't fight for keeping everybody out, because then we all have to leave.
Yeah, that was before the election. Okay, just think of that. Now, she hasn't changed her mind much. She's kept herself kind of quiet. John Luna, thank you so much. Wow, that's a big thank you. Super chat. I so appreciate it. I tried to put it on, but it keeps coming up lopsided, so it's kind of hard to read. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It says, great stream today, Ms. Trish. I love your perspective. You don't need to call me Ms., by the way. I love your perspective and no holds barred, brutal honesty. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you guys do to make this channel happen. Going over to the FCC warning, okay? So I can't believe I didn't play this for you. This just happened a couple of days ago, and it's a big deal because Brandon Carr, who runs the FCC, who governs all of these networks, okay? He went on to Fox and he leveled a big warning at NBC. Don't forget, he's already sent Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, which owns ABC, a nasty letter, like right after the election, saying, hey, watch it. And then he sent another one in March. They're investigating them. And then like days ahead of Terry Moran, Terry, your timing is impeccable. Your bosses are like, what the H-E-double-L? Oh my gosh. Brandon had just said this a short time before. Listen in, head of the FCC.
Your probe into Disney's DEI policies. Their senior counsel writes, this is all about bullying and intimidation. Mr. Carr's most powerful tool is his vote on the commission to approve mergers and acquisitions. Is this about Disney's hiring practices, or is it about something else?
Yeah, this is about the hiring practices and their employment practices. Look, broadcasters, and Disney owns one, ABC, they have an obligation under federal law. We have EEO rules at the FCC, which means you can't make hiring decisions based on protected characteristics, including gender and race. And the evidence we have so far indicates potentially that Disney and ABC were making employment decisions based on race and gender, including having effectively race-defined affinity groups within the company. We have evidence that they put quotas in place based on specific demographics. If the evidence does, in fact, play out and shows that they were engaged in race and gender-based discrimination, that's a very serious issue at the FCC that could fundamentally go to their character qualifications to even hold a license. But we're going to follow the facts wherever they go. Look, President Trump's been clear. We are turning the page on DEI. The first week I was chairman of the FCC, I said we are ending our own promotion of DEI at the FCC. People will be shocked if they learned the millions of dollars that the FCC alone was spending to promote DEI. We had it listed as our second highest strategic priority. I mean, think about everything the FCC can and should be doing. National security issues, bridging the digital divide, space economy. And we had promoting DEI as our number 2 strategic priority. Now we're going to focus on our core mission.
Wow. Okay, did you hear that, Disney? Did you hear that, Terry? No, clearly he didn't hear that. Or maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to provoke. Maybe he wanted to make sure that more people knew his name. I don't know. But it was really, really bad timing, okay? Like moronic timing, given that Brandon Carr had just gone on and said this. So he's like fanning the flames, right? And then you had this, we've talked about this, that this investigation was going on. A report from Post Millennial saying FCC investigates Disney over DEI discrimination. While I have seen reports that Disney recently walked back some of its DEI programs, significant concerns remain. Okay, this was one of the letters, the one most recently, end of March. Okay, so this stuff is fresh, alive, and well. Carr's letter said to Iger, I am writing to inform you that I have asked the FCC's Enforcement Bureau to open investigation into Disney and ABC. In particular, I want to ensure that Disney and ABC have not been violating FCC equal employment opportunity regulations by promoting invidious forms of DEI discrimination. While I have seen reports that Disney recently walked back some of its DEI programs, DEI remains a significant concern. Okay, significant concern. In other words, they don't even care if they're fixing it lately. It's Johnny come lately. He wants to ensure, here we go, this is the FCC in their letter saying, I want to ensure that Disney ends any and all discriminatory initiatives and substance not just named for another. I want to determine whether Disney's actions, whether ongoing or recently ended. So that's the part that you need to focus on. Because maybe they're scrambling after the fact and they're trying to end all this stuff. But he's like, I don't care. Like, if you were doing it, you are still in jeopardy because constitutionally speaking, right? And they just had a big ruling on this, like this kind of quote unquote reverse discrimination you can't do. There was a woman who sued because apparently she was heterosexual and that was a problem, I guess, in terms of her promotion. So she said, I'm being discriminated against because I'm heterosexual. So in other words, and the ruling, I should say, the court's ruling on that was that, she can't be discriminated against for that because, again, it's discriminating on the basis of sexuality and it's not allowed. So Brendan means business. And he's looking into all this stuff, racially segregated affinity programs, Reimagine Tomorrow initiative for DEI, inclusion standards across ABC, the network requiring 50% of regular and recurring characters be drawn from underrepresented groups, may have forced racial and identity quotas into every level of production, demanding 50% more of writers, directors, crew, vendors be selected based on group affinity. And so they have a problem. Do not forget, by the way, this is amid the backdrop of the Elon Musk Gina Carano lawsuit where she was suing because she said she got fired because of her political beliefs. Do you remember that? And they just had this big sort of move forward where they can get a lot of discovery. So this is important for Gina. And frankly, it's important for the FCC.
When I wouldn't hashtag trans rights and I wouldn't put my pronouns in, like they kept on it pressuring. And finally, I just said, I'm not doing this, I'm not. Like, what are the pronouns? I didn't even know what people were talking about. I was just not clued in to the pronouns thing, which apparently that's been happening for like 7-8 years now, right? It's been happening.
But no one has ever explained its purpose. I
didn't know.
You're just supposed to know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you're a bigot.
Yeah. Well, then I put beep bop boop in my
beep bop boop.
Yeah.
So that, if I'm translating, that just means middle finger to you, right?
That just meant I can put anything I want in my bio. I can do whatever I want. That's all that was.
Because you thought it was a free country.
Yeah, because I thought it was yes.
Yeah, right.
But I was
just trying to follow your train of reasoning here.
Yeah, you can put anything in your bio that you want, and the whole, meltdown that caused was just, and then,
in a bad way, or are people impressed? I'm impressed.
No, it's cool now, but this was, mind you, this was like a year and a half ago. So this was I was speaking out about lockdowns, mass vaccinations, and pronouns way before anybody was even saying a word about it. And so I was a little bit ahead. I'm sure if I would have done that now, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But because I was talking about this when nobody else was talking about it, especially nobody else in my industry, it was like, Lucasfilm called me and they were like, okay, we're going to need you to go on a Zoom call with 45 of our, LGBTQ, community. And we have to get you on the phone with these people. We need to have you watch all of these these movies about the trans lives, documentaries. And I was like, okay, I'll watch your documentaries and I'll talk to your people. But I'm not going to get on a Zoom call with 45 different people who can have their phones out videotaping me. And I feel like that's extremely abusive.
Yeah. Can you imagine? 45 people they wanted her on a call with? To go through why she's such a bad person because she put beep bop boop. By the way, remember Rachel Zegler, little Rachel Zegler from New Jersey, former Maria in West Side Story, turned Snow White, who tanked Snow White. It went from the biggest grossing box office film ever in the history of Disney to the worst. She's the one who pushed heavily on Twitter to get her fired. This is all going down. I know how Gina feels. Look, I was way out in front in March 2020. And sometimes it's like not good to be first, right? You should always say. But it all worked out for the best. I'm here. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I remember a couple of years ago, and I took pictures on my cell phone of this, all right? So I went to look on my computer for a costume for my son who wanted to go as Dash from The Incredibles, which is a Disney Pixar film. And he loves to run and he loves to run fast, so he thought he could be Dash for Halloween. So I go on, mom here, and I start looking for the Dash costume. Okay, I should have given him a Spider-Man costume, right? Here I go, Dash costume. Can you guys see this? I took this with my cell phone, and this is amazing. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you, or Apple iTunes. But we're looking at pictures. This is boys' costumes, okay? I do a search for boys' costumes. Do you see what's up there in front? It says boys' costumes. And I could not believe this. Boys' costumes, and what do you see? Princess dresses. Every single one of them. It's the first thing that came up, and this is on my computer. I'm like, what? Seriously. So I circled them. There you see, boys' costumes. And the first thing, 30% off the Jasmine costume for kids, Aladdin. We got to send this to Brendan Carr over at the FCC. Then you had the Belle costume for kids, Beauty and the Beast, the princess costume. Okay, I'm just looking for Dash, and I can't find Dash. I mean, if you go down the list, the first 5 costumes are girls' costumes, and then you finally get to a robot or something. Come on, people. Disney's in trouble. Like, serious trouble. They're laying off. We know that. I think there are more heads that are going to roll at NBC. They got all kinds of financial headaches thanks to Snow White, Rachel Zegler, lovely little Rachel ingenue from New Jersey that she is. They got problems, okay? And now they've got the FCC, as you can see, breathing down their back. So they're paying all kinds of money in legal bills, and they're sitting there saying, we got to get rid of ABC News. We've got to get rid of this problem. Now, maybe they keep ESPN. I know they're going to keep ESPN, actually. I can tell you that because they've actually invested a lot of money in trying to make ESPN happen. They're charging like $20 or something, I think, for the stream now, so that you can get just ESPN via streams. We'll see. Dawn may disagree with me, but I actually think that people will pay up for sports, and so that might be an opportunity for them. But are you really going to pay up for this Disney content when they're trying to force feed you a bunch of boys' costumes for your kid for Disney? I don't think so. Are you going to pay up? I mean, look at the box office, right? For Snow White, that tells you exactly how that all went down. And so now on the heels of that, they're having to lay off all these employees, and they're laying them off in the entertainment division as they increasingly say to themselves, what are we doing with the liability of ABC News? It doesn't even make any money, and it's not a business that's growing. So Disney's laying off hundreds of employees from teams across its television and film divisions. It's one of the things that they probably are thinking, hey, Terry Moran, let's suspend him and then let's fire him because we'll save some money. Probably not a lot, but some. Plus, they're sending a message, I guess, to everybody else on the ABC News staff, like, guys, like, don't be crazy. Like, don't do crazy stuff. It's important for us to notice that, though, as conservatives, because now we know they really are crazy. While no entire teams are being eliminated, according to Disney spokespeople, several hundred job losses will occur across the Disney entertainment departments that handle all of the marketing for movies and TV, publicity, casting and development, right? Because, all that DEI casting and development, not to mention The View. They already had layoffs at The View. Whoopi's lost like practically her whole team. And now Bob Iger is issuing this warning to the hosts on The View. Hey, like, knock it off. Like, all of you, knock it off. George Stephanopoulos, we just had to pay $16 million because of you. Look at the mess CBS News finds itself in. Can none of you take a hint, right? We get the FCC breathing down our back. They're conducting this investigation. People don't seem to like our products anymore. They didn't want to go and see Snow White. And now Iger's warning all these ladies on The View to knock it off. In fact, let's go back to the headline. It says here in the New York Post, Disney CEO Bob Iger, The View ABC News boss, told The View host to tone down the anti-Trump criticism. And apparently they may be telling him to pound sand. At least Ana Navarro has no interest in any of this. They had the guy who runs all of ABC News and must have made the decision here on Terry Moran to exit him, trying to convince these hosts that they've got to do something different. And there's a lot of tension now behind the scenes, according to the Daily Beast, for whatever that's worth, because this is what they do, right? Political issues. So they're sitting there saying, well, how can we cover anything else? We don't really know how to cover entertainment anymore. We have to talk politics. And so now the executive producer apparently said to staffers, we got to go easy on this. We got to go easy on this. We got to back off. And Whoopi's not happy. Whoopi apparently snapped, according to OK Magazine, at her producer live on the air. And I think it's created this environment where they don't even know what to talk about. Whoopi has backed off for sure. Like if you notice, she's kind of being a lot more cautious in terms of what she's saying, and she's leaving it up to the other ladies to say things. But according, again, we're going back to the New York Post story, the head of ABC News, his name is with the host, I guess, oh gosh, I don't want to mutilate this name, Kara Megdovich. So they're trying to shift the show's tone. So he's working with the View producer, whose last name is Tedda, I guess Brian Tedda, to try and shift this and to lifestyle segments, et cetera. And the hosts don't want anything to do with it. Again, remember, these are the hosts that were threatening that Trump was going to lock everyone up.
What's interesting for me is that
okay, spit it out.
People's faith in the country is waning. Yes. That's the thing that's pissing me off, because in fact, there's a reason Joe Biden ran the way he did. There's a reason he's running for democracy now, because that's really what's at stake. You worried that you can't pay your bill? Wait till the other guy becomes president, and you won't have to worry about it because you'll be in some camp somewhere. Because that's his promise. I mean, his promise to us is he's going to force people to do his
crazy stuff, right? So that was before the election. They've continued the craziness since the election, at least most of them, except for Whoopi, who seems to actually be listening to her bosses in this case, and they're like, tone it down, tone it down, tone it down. Like, we got enough headache. And so Terry Moran now getting that suspension after that crazy social media post in the wee hours of the morning. It was like midnight, right on Saturday night. I'm like, Terry, what were you doing? Getting a little wild, right, on Saturday night. Letting it all hang out, telling us exactly how you feel. Pretty bad. So now we know exactly where they're coming from, and believe me, there's more where that's from, right? So if he feels that way and he's a correspondent, what about all the producers around him? What about everybody on the team? David Smith, thank you so much again for the generosity, laughing about Disney and the princesses and the costumes I just showed you. Maybe they can make some of the MASH guys, right, into Disney princesses. Oh yeah, I'm sure they'd love that. Who knows? But they were trying, for whatever reason, to force upon the world a certain viewpoint. And you know what? The world said, seen that, done that, no, we don't want it. And so I think the world pushed back. And so you see sort of this economic engine. This is why we love capitalism, right? Because it gives more say to the individual, the individual, right, that's affected by all this stuff. Speaking of loving capitalism, we've been watching gold prices very carefully here on the Trish Regan Show. As you know, Trish Regan loves gold. Trish loves gold. Go to trishlovesgold.com for up to $15,000 off with a free silver. Actually, not off. What am I saying? Up to $15,000 of free silver. I'm wearing the right dress for it today, am I not? This is with American Hartford Gold, one of our show sponsors. Gold has been on a tear, of course. I'm just trying to see if I can get a live price for you right now. Gold has been on a tear, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We've talked about it at length, in part because I think the world is trying to diversify away from U.S. dollars. We've got gold up again today, so sitting near all-time records at 33.54, up 0.25%. You know what? This is really, really just incredible. I've been telling you to buy it since it was like $1,500 on this show. So that's a good thing. Go check them out. TrishLovesGold.com. Get more information today. Text Trish to 65532. Call them at 1-844-495-1115. Tell them you saw the advertisement here on the Trish Regan Show. It helps us. And again, I'm just a big believer in diversifying into things like gold. By the way, I should point out silver up nearly 2% right now at $36 an ounce. Also, if you're interested in investing in general, and I hope you are, you know, you get some investors hoping for a rate cut. I actually don't think that they're going to get it, guys. I really don't. So I'm going to take that lower off of the screen right now. 76research.com, code word dollar. Investors cheering again today, this market. You know what? There's a lot of good stuff. We got the jobs report last week. Looks like, you know, we're moving forward with some negotiations there in China and, of course, the EU. We talk about some of the sectors to be in, some of the stocks to watch there at 76research.com. You can get my research. It's my research. And Rob as well, my dear, dear friend, Rob Horton, who has spent decades on Wall Street and managed billions of dollars. And I convinced him we needed to do this. We really, because I want to make sure that you have access to real information, not just what you're getting here on the news front, but also on the financial front. So 76research.com, really important to look at that. This is just amazing, though. Disney having to pay the price here, suspending one of its own after just a real mess. I want to turn right now to Letitia James, our favorite, right? Because Letitia James is really becoming unhinged. She's losing a lot of support. She just did this big case with Equinox, where she got Equinox, the gym. I actually used to have a membership there, and I canceled it. No problem, actually. I had no problem canceling my membership for what it's worth. She sued Equinox saying nobody could cancel their memberships. It's like a kind of, how do I say this? Shishi gym, right? Like, it's fancy. It's really fancy. And some of these memberships were like really expensive in the hundreds of dollars per month. But you know, Letitia, looking out for the people, spending $200 a month at a Equinox gym. They can't cancel it. So she's got to step in. So this is this sort of new claim to fame that she's touting, and she's being made fun of pretty badly there on the social media circuit. And then the New York Post with this headline, Tish gets ripped, joking about her actually being in a gym, which I think is, well, we'll leave that neither here nor there, okay? So she's all, you know, she's getting ripped. She's getting ripped on social media because people are making fun of her, not really caring about people. So she posted on Facebook how great it was, right? That she did this, and they're like, okay, well, it costs like $250 to have a membership there anyway, so we don't really think you're looking out for the little people. You're just doing whatever you can to make some person's life difficult. I don't know what she had against Equinox. Really, I mean, again, look, it's just personal experience. I don't know if this happened for everyone, but I canceled it, had no issue. But she's becoming unhinged, okay? Like, you know, she's got a lot that she's dealing with. Poor Letitia doesn't know how to manage, of course, that she's suddenly losing support from her party, that she's being made fun of by New Yorkers on social media for her big, you know, $600,000 win from Equinox. And if you look at this soundbite of her from the other day, I think we haven't seen this before. She's really losing it.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on. And I will fight on.
Okay. Fight on from prison? I don't know. I mean, this is what she's facing, right? She's got the mortgage fraud allegations that she's up against. And apparently, according to the FHA, she was lying on her application. This is like actually very serious, because theoretically you could face up to 30 years in prison. I don't actually think she'd face that if she's convicted. I think that they'll go easy on her. But the point is, she's facing this, okay? This is like a big deal. 18 U.S.C. 1014, false statements to obtain a federally insured loan. 18 U.S.C. 1001, false statements to the government. We've seen people get in real trouble for this. And her own words are coming back to haunt her, if you would, because as this indictment moves forward, as voters shift the other way, she's out there with her own words effectively being thrown back in her face. Alina Habba did that the other day. I think Pam Bondi did as well. Here's her quote, okay? When she got the verdict against Donald Trump from the judge who was willing to like he actually increased whatever she wanted, call it 300 million. He's like, no, let's make it 450 or 468 or whatever. It's now over 500 million that Donald Trump is supposed to pay to New York. Quote, when powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of honest and hardworking people. Everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank or get a mortgage to buy a home. And if they did, the government would throw the book at them. Yeah, like 30 years, Letitia. There simply cannot be different rules for different people, she writes. Now Donald Trump is finally facing accountability for his lying, cheating, and staggering fraud, because no matter how rich or powerful you think you are, no one is above the law. Well, let's hear what the head of the FHA, William Pulte, is saying about Letitia and her respect for the law, shall we?
Recommended that the DOJ investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James over alleged mortgage fraud. The AG, Letitia James, has responded. We don't have the video, but here's the quote. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia resident. And prior to that, I indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for enforcement of their investigation. Bill, do you know why she said she was a resident of Virginia on the power of attorney, if in fact she wasn't?
Well, I know that we are mortgage experts, and we only refer things that we think are mortgage fraud, and we stand 100% behind the letter. I'll let the letter speak for itself. I do know, and I have seen some reports from that subject, from that subject's criminal defense lawyer, saying certain things. I'll leave it to the DOJ to correct various things. But again, when we see mortgage fraud, we are going to report it. When we see mortgage fraud, we are going to prosecute it within the confines.
And so that's exactly what they're doing, right? Piece of my mind pointing out that, and it was something I've said before, the subject, he doesn't even want to say Letitia James's name. He's just like the subject. Okay, like this is not good. Again, not good for one Letitia James. FHA loans are insured by the federal government, so it's very different. And we've talked about this before, but very, very different. And we're going to stay on this story because it's important, okay? It's important. She was trying to go after Donald Trump, saying that he had lied on his mortgage application with Deutsche Bank, private transaction, where Deutsche Bank is making a private decision, not owned by the government, right, on whether or not to loan him money. And they were using Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower as collateral. And so that's a decision that Deutsche Bank gets to make, okay, Letitia? He's not asking for federal money or federal funds or to have the loan guaranteed by the federal government like you were. And there's a distinction now. She's like, oh, no, you know what? It was just a clerical error, to which I say, listen, you're a lawyer, theoretically. And as a lawyer, you really ought to know better. Like, I kind of feel like there should be a little bit of a higher standard, right? Not to mention, not only are you a lawyer, you're the Attorney General of the state of New York, for goodness sake. So what are you doing lying on an FHA loan application about your primary residence status? I mean, that is a federal offense. You should know that better than anyone, because at the time, you were trying to go after Donald Trump for mortgage fraud, right? The FHA requires the property to be the borrower's primary residence within 60 days of closing. And the reason for that is why? Because people are less likely to default on a primary residence rather than a secondary residence. If she has all these homes and it's a secondary residence, then the government is a little bit more nervous about actually insuring that. And so there was an advantage to her putting that down. But she's like, no, nothing to see. This is the house. This is the house in Norfolk, Virginia, where it all began, shall we say. Actually, no, it began probably with this brownstone in New York. So now the state government in New York is looking into this one because she's out there saying she's got 4 levels instead of 5 levels in her unit building, the brownstone in New York. And guess what? Again, there's a federal incentive in terms of the money you get to do that. On top of which, there was an incentive apparently for her to put her name down as her dad's wife back in 1983. I mean, we're going way back, but what it shows is a pattern of behavior that is very concerning. She said she was her father's wife back in 83 so that they could buy this little thing together. And Stephen Miller is adding it all up. And listen, I'm with him on this. You can't just keep lying on all these applications and then go after the former president of the United States to the tune of $500 million and expect that like no one's going to notice your previous history doing, well, gosh darn it, exactly what you're accusing him of.
Letitia James says the allegations against her are nothing more than a revenge tour by the Trump administration. What's your response?
My response is that Letitia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She is guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
Don Baca pointing out, you know what? You're responsible for whatever you're putting on the application. Like you can't claim your innocence because of stupidity, okay? Like you just can't. Here it is. Take a good look there. I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my, quote, principal residence. They're all circled in red. Well, it wasn't ever going to be your principal residence, again, because you were the Attorney General of New York, not the Attorney General of Virginia. Oh, just a clerical error. They're just trying to go after me. It's nothing, she tells us.
As you know, we filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump and his family. We secured $454 million judgment against him, which is on appeal. The case is on appeal. I have no idea when that case will be decided. This investigation into me is nothing more than retribution. It's baseless. It has to do with the fact that on a power of attorney, I mistakenly indicated that I was a state of Virginia, but prior to that, I had indicated to the mortgage broker that, in fact, in bold cap letters, that I am not a resident of Virginia and never will be. And in the mortgage application, I indicated that I would not live in Virginia and I was not a resident. They just took the power of attorney and they're using that as a basis for.
Okay, so why did you do it then? Again, knowing that you're a lawyer and that you're the Attorney General. And what about all the other stuff? Okay, like, again, we are seeing a pattern and the pattern is problematic. She's trying to say it's retribution. I don't think so. But here, she says the reason this is an issue is because Donald Trump wants to get me. Donald Trump's looking at this, I think, similar to Bill Pulte, and he's saying, this is not good for you, honey bunny.
What's your thoughts on Letitia James? Director Pulte, according to him, Letitia James says that the alleged mortgage fraud was simply a mistake. I want to get your thoughts on that. She put down that her father was her husband. In order, and this is very similar to, I guess, the false accounts they have on here.
Well, I don't know what it is currently, but Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York State, it seemed, I'm not involved in that at all. I know it's being handled by various groups, I guess, but it's major fraud, mortgage documents, and fraudulent everything. I think she said the father was her husband, which she had to have a husband, or so she chose her father, and she put it down, and she had didn't she sign in Virginia, yet she said she lived in Virginia, yet she's the New York State Attorney General, and she did that for tax reasons, so she could take advantage of taxes. And she had the wrong number of units. She had a much different number, which wouldn't have allowed her to qualify and scam the government. So I don't know. I think she's very bad for New York, but I really don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the question. Thank you very much. Yes.
So again, she's going to go back to that and say, well, you know, he's just targeting me because I went after him. But I'll tell you, this is interesting. Voters aren't really buying it in the state of New York. Big articles. We've talked about a few of them, but this is new here. They're talking about in the City Journal, her campaign being totally on the ropes. Voters aren't buying this. They're not interested in the Equinox thing that she just did. They don't see that as a win for them. And you go out throughout the state of New York and you actually see a very different environment than you do in New York City. And I know this, I've traveled throughout Western New York, actually. I have family from there, and I've lived in New York City. So I get this sort of stark difference. And I think, as you heard Joe Scarborough say earlier, what you're starting to see is a lot of these liberal places, historically liberal places, are starting to change. You look at these numbers right there, right? Attorney General Letitia James. Everybody's talking about Chuck Schumer being under fire. Everybody's talking about this. Just, by the way, John Luna, thank you. Thank you so much. My goodness, you guys are just insanely generous today. I really appreciate it. He loves the stream. And Sherry Gates, I'm looking for Sherry here. I'm just trying to see if I can see her. Thank you again. So appreciate it. I don't know. Look at this. Look at how weird this is. If you look, guys, I'm trying to put John's statement on. That's gonna have to be some work in the downtime of the Trish Regan Show. We got to figure out how to get those comments on without them being all over the screen like that. Anyway, you see these numbers, right? Okay, 40% favorable, 33% unfavorable. Voters are over her. This is a big deal. Part of it is due to some of the immigration issues. CBS News actually just came out with a poll on this one, and overwhelmingly, it's very interesting, especially in light of some of the things that we're seeing happen in LA. Just unfortunate, tragic stuff. By the way, the federal government has a lot of power, right? Have we not talked about that at length? Constitutionally speaking, supremacy clause, naturalization, you name it, the commerce clause. And so I suspect that they're Karen Bass and Gavin, they're really in for some challenging times out in Los Angeles. But if you look at New York, for example, you're seeing a similar kind of feeling about this, 79% backing the deportation of immigrants that have been convicted of a crime. And Letitia's not there. Like, that is not what she stands for. So how is she going to get elected in this kind of environment? I think that there's a real chance she doesn't. On top of which, she's out there spouting about Cuomo. She hates Andrew Cuomo. I don't like him either, but now I'm like, oh, you know. Maybe it's not all that bad if Letitia despises him so much. This article appearing in The Sun within the last week. Letitia James warns against Andrew Cuomo's run for president. Oh, not just mayor. He might be actually thinking real aspirationally. We'll see. I don't think he's going to get too far. But nonetheless, what you're seeing overall here is this momentum against her. Even colleagues coming out now and turning on Letitia James. This article making the rounds, I believe this is in Free Beacon this week, with colleagues saying that she abused her power. Why do I not disagree with that possibly being true? I mean, we know she abused her power vis-a-vis what she did with Donald Trump. This is a separate story altogether, but this is why Elise Stefanik has said, look, we need to investigate this. She was out there trying to muscle her way into a situation for political purposes. We've seen over and over again that even now the media is coming out against her, with New York Magazine saying this was sort of nuts. She inexplicably chose to use the resources of her public office to respond to the investigation, right? So she's using the $10 million that she's going to get for this legal fund. I don't think she's going to get it because the GOP is like, no way. On top of which, she was out there making wildly inappropriate out-of-court statements that would ordinarily get a prosecutor fired. I mean, she was going after family members, the New York Magazine writes, family members, and trying to say she was going to take them down too, branding them as liars while they were testifying. And I remember Eric being so frustrated about this. He came on this show and spoke about it, and then he was on Newsmax. Let's listen in.
You have a corrupt attorney general who literally ran on the campaign promise of taking down my father. She goes, I'm going to go after Donald. I'm going to take down his family. I'm going to go after his children. I'm going to get, her exact quote, I'm going to get to the office of attorney general every day. I'm going to sue Donald Trump, and then I'm going to go home. I mean, she'd fundraise off of this nonsense. Like, this was her entire platform, going after after my father. Then obviously she gets into office and she does exactly that. And you've got a crooked court and everything else. But actually, I think we're making a breakthrough with the judge. I think they're trying to realize there are no victims. First of all, my father's statements are undervalued, not overvalued. Second of all, she's going after banks. She's trying to protect banks that made hundreds of millions of dollars with Trump, meaning there were no aggrieved party. There were no defaults. There were no
you guys made
loan
money.
covenants.
You guys made money. That's why
we'd borrow money. Yeah. Go do a great project. Be very successful.
Jobs and homes.
Pay a tremendous amount of interest, and then pay the banks back in full. Like, we never had so much as a default. No one. So we're saying they're saying, is there a victim in this? I mean, you're suing us and there's no victim, but Carla, it's nonsense. The DOJ has told Letitia James to make my father's life hell, to keep him tied up in a courtroom, to cost him tens and tens of millions of dollars, to distract him.
Yeah.
He actually wasn't making progress at the time. He thought he was making progress. No, he didn't make any progress, unfortunately, because you had a very biased judge. And you stack those two things up against Donald Trump, and it was significant. I mean, they were trying to bankrupt him. Let's face it, they wanted him in jail. They got the mugshot, which now he put right outside the Oval Office. That's great, right? And they wanted to bankrupt him to the point where they wanted to take his assets. Letitia James said it, ironically, on, wait for it, ABC News, which is facing the FCC investigation, which just had to suspend its reporter for his hateful comments on social media.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm wondering if you might have to sell a few of your assets, right, Letitia? I wonder how much you can get for this house. You might need the money. I mean, you may just. Because otherwise you're facing 30 years, right? And you got that expensive attorney that used to work for Hunter Biden. He's got to cost plenty. You're facing this. If you can't get the money to pay him, think he'll take you on pro bono? I'm not sure he's going to take you on pro bono. I really don't. And you're facing a lot of trouble. A lot, shall we say, right about now. You know who else is facing trouble? What is it? Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is in huge trouble. Her party doesn't like her, kind of like Letitia right now. Party doesn't like her. And now, it turns out there's another nonprofit that is in a bit of hot water. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. It's really, really important. We are climbing. Look at that. We were in top 100 last week. And I'm hoping we get to 1 million subs. I'm really hoping this summer, right? Let's do it, guys. Let's do it. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Quick shout out to one of our sponsors before I get to the Stacey Abrams story, patriotmobile.com/Trish. Call 972-PATRIOT to join us at Patriot Mobile today. You get a free month for those that are switching over. And guess what? You get to keep your cell phone number, all that good stuff. Wonderful company that supports patriots like you, like me, like this show. Just a great company, looking out for veterans, looking out for our Constitution. So why not put your money where your mouth is, right? When you think of all the places where you can spend money, and certainly you do on your cell phone each month, this one actually cares about some of the same things you do. And that's why we like them. And we appreciate all their sponsorship here on the show. So show them a little love. Go to patriotmobile.com/Trish. Sign up. Call them 972-PATRIOT today. Stacey Abrams being accused of a mega crime here. Another financial crime. I don't know what she is thinking. And, I'll tell you, the Democrats have a bit of a problem on their hands because this woman wants to run for governor way down in Georgia again. And, she keeps running and she keeps on losing, but she won't admit she lost. But apparently it's perfectly fine if you're Stacey Abrams to say that you won when you didn't, or at least refuse to concede. Yeah, this is the big article. They did a giant puff piece on her there in the New York Times a couple years ago when she came forward saying that, she won. I read that and I was like, wow, that's really amazing. The New York Times is totally fine with Stacey Abrams saying she won the election, even when she didn't. That's kind of amazing. Anyway, it's par for the course, right? You know that. I know that. That's why Terry Moran is in trouble right now, because now we all know. Do we not? We all know what's going on. Stacey, however, as I said, is a new headache for Democrats at this moment. She's run twice. It's enough to convince me, this is an article from the New York Post, she won't win a general election. He apparently told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution this. This is Jimmy Johnson, former chair of the Appling County Democratic Committee there. They don't know what to do with her, right? It's going to just be more pain. But you know who it won't be pain for? Stacey, because I have a feeling she's going to make more money on it. She knows how to work these nonprofits. This one, Stacey Abrams, allegedly now being caught funneling $20 million to her friend, her former college mate at Spelman College, and her former campaign manager, who wouldn't take the case as pro bono. Like I said, we were just talking about Letitia and her heavy legal bills. And she's got that $10 million alleged slush fund to be able to cover them there in the state of New York. The GOP doesn't want to give her access to it. Well, Stacey, she took on this Georgia governor thing with her fair fight action. So she spent all this money with this law firm, Lawrence Hardy, that was co-founded by her really good friend and her former campaign manager to say, no, I really won Georgia. And, well, she didn't. Brian Kemp, she lost to him. She lost to Brian as she did manage in the interim to pay, I should say, which could be a potential IRS violation. The IRS actually hasn't commented on this just yet, but tax records reveal $20.2 million went to this woman. If you can see her picture, it is her former campaign manager, and people are raising an eyebrow, saying, you know what, this is really expensive. It's like very high. It's a very high cost to have defended her all those years. In fact, the state government only spent $6 million on their case, and they won it. And a lot of people are saying this is a totally frivolous case. Like, what was Stacey really thinking taking this on? I'll tell you what Stacey was thinking. Stacey was thinking about Stacey, right? Socialists, they're very good at putting themselves first. So Stacey's thinking about Stacey. How do I raise my profile? Apparently simultaneously helping out my friends with benefits, shall we say. So this is, as I said, the Georgia State Senate is now looking into her for a variety of things. Don't forget, she just had to pay a big fine for one of her nonprofits. She had all these nonprofits like popping up all over the place. And the New Georgia Project, which apparently failed to report millions of dollars in contributions, their spending tied to Abrams' first gubernatorial bid back in 2018. She lost to Kemp, so then she raised money so that she could sue the state of Georgia in this fair fight action. And in doing so, right, she raised her profile and she made a bit of money for her friend. People are saying this was never a case, though. By the way, it got thrown out by, for what it's worth, African-American judge, this guy who was an Obama appointee. All right, so even he's like, you didn't do it. You didn't actually show us that there was any racial component which enabled or disabled, I should say, people from voting in the state of Georgia. So this was this whole lawsuit. Fair fight, aptly named, right? And her law person there that got all the money for the firm, she has made a big deal saying, this is so near and dear to my heart. This is really important. We need to make sure that we're not discriminated against with voting rights. So I'm just saying she could have taken it on pro bono, right? The firm has taken on other things pro bono. If it was that near and dear to her heart, it wasn't that near and dear. Let's just say, $20.2 million can make it very near and dear. But was it even real? Was it even real? Abrams, meanwhile, getting herself a nice little salary, $80,000. You see, politics can be a very lucrative little business for people that are very clever about it, but not too clever, because you know what? Time is catching up with her. Catching up. Anybody who's grifting out there, like a Stacey Abrams, I think is about to pay the price. Don't forget, again, paying off the friends, so to speak, representing her. I'd like to see these legal bills, because one should be asking for that. Lawyers actually have to itemize every hour that they're working. So if she's paying her friend $20 million, it's 20.2, so 200,000, but just call it 20 million, and the state is only costing $6 million to defend themselves, and by the way, they won, something's kind of off, just a little bit off. And don't forget, this is the woman who's all upset because she doesn't have any more of this grant money in her various NGOs. Lee Zeldin making this point. Don't forget what Lee was saying. Lee Zeldin slamming her. This is back in February, saying that she had racked up all kinds of needless expenses with her, NGO that was all about allegedly the environment. There was $20 billion that they're now seeing went through city. And he's like, whoa, this was a lot. This is the tip of the iceberg. And they're investigating it. Here he is speaking with Donald Trump and the cabinet. This is in one of those cabinet meetings back in February.
FDA has now canceled over $22 billion worth of contracts. $2 billion going to this NGO that Stacey Abrams was tied to. They received only $100 in 2023. And then the Biden administration gave them $2 billion. The director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund saw his former employer get $5 billion. So $20 billion went to just 8 NGOs, and they're all pass-throughs. And then they were giving it to other entities. Many of them were pass-throughs. And what you have is all these extra middlemen, they're taking their cut. And the taxpayer ends up getting screwed. They're losing out on all this hard-earned money. They can't afford to have the federal government waste The partnership with Doge.
Look, I mean, we can't afford to have that kind of waste, and we can't afford to just be bankrolling Democrats who want to live off the system. Jasmine Crockett, however, she feels very differently. This is the representative from Texas saying, you know what? We got to stand with Stacey because this is really just all about her running for governor and some people not wanting her to run for governor. And then there's, well, she goes back to the well. I'll let her say it.
So to hear the comments about Stacey Abrams, it really got me going. And a lot of times when we come into this hearing room, it's all about politics. And it made me think that there was an issue most likely with Stacey because someone actually brought up the fact that Stacey has run for governor a couple of times, and it seems like there's a gubernatorial race that's coming up in Georgia, and nobody knows whether or not Stacey is going to run. So why not muddy the water if we can to hopefully keep a strong black woman down? But again, I digress.
You digress. Oh, well, you know, Jasmine, keeping a strong black woman down, that seems to be part of your whole MO, right? Like it all goes back to race. It's why Stacey lost, she says, because it was race, except that the judge who was appointed by Obama actually felt quite differently. Again, we'll go back to, let's see his statement. This is her attorney, but let's go back to the judge. Do we have the judge? Do we have the judge? Do we have the judge? Yes, we do. Okay, so no, we don't. Well, I think we read it. There we go. There's the judge. There's the judge. The judge is saying you actually failed to provide any evidence of a voter who was unable to vote because of their race. So what was it about other than just a whole bunch of headlines? Really, guys, okay? We gotta do better than that. If nothing else, have we not learned, Disney, ABC, that you've got to do better than that? Here's my prediction. ABC is actually going to see a whole lot more heads rolling. I think The View is in jeopardy. I know we've said that a lot, but there may be a way to sort of off-brand that, maybe put it into a podcast, maybe do something else with it. But it's hurting the network overall. So I don't care if people are still tuning in. They're not able to command the same ad dollars that they were. And on top of that, you're costing Disney, the corporation, a whole lot of headache. So Terry Moran is finding out the hard way exactly what it means to be in conflict with the FCC. And this is a whole new FCC, okay? This is a whole new administration with a whole new agenda. And they care about truth and they care about fairness in reporting. And I don't think that you've seen a ton of it from ABC. I mean, over and over and over again. We saw that even with the debate. Remember, we won't go back to the cats and dogs, but that was kind of funny, right? Was it not? It was. Quick shout out for another one of our sponsors, Balance of Nature. We love Balance of Nature. I take the fruits and veggies, and they have all kinds of stuff there on the website. You should go check it out, balanceofnature.com. You can get 35% off. Right? So, you want to stay healthy, you want to drink your water, take your vitamins, get your exercise, all that. I'm sounding like your mom again. 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751. Give them a ring. Use my name for the 35% off, plus the free shipping, plus the money back guarantee. So you can't beat it. Again, Balance of Nature, one of our sponsors that we're so proud to have on this show, helping me to bring you this show every single day for free. That matters, right? It really does. Thank you again for being here, everyone. Oh, before I go, one more sponsor, right? I think they get 2 a day. So these guys are really doubling down. American Hartford Gold. TrishLovesGold.com. TrishLovesGold.com. Go check that out today, everyone, because look, gold is just moving, shall we say. And it would be good to have gotten in at 1,500 when I told you to. But listen, I am still a long-term believer. Every time gold goes down, I actually go in and I buy it again. So it's just one of those great things to have. Thank you for all you do here on the show. We're climbing in the charts. But the charts aren't everything, right? They're not everything. You know what's everything? Truth. Truth is absolutely everything, and being able to report that, and that means the world to me. So thank you for all you do. I'm looking at those likes. Don is on your case, and I'll be back here live with you tomorrow. We have much more news coming your way throughout the day.